I went on Etsy and found this cool thing. And it was so cool, I was so excited and inspired, so I went back on Etsy and found a bunch more cool things. And now I'm sad. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we discuss how the collector module in our hobbyist brain is often working against us, despite what it may feel like. And we tip our hats to our patrons for their constant and uplifting support. Thank you guys very much. Ah, the collector module, that little engine of dopamine-powered consumerism tucked away in our little brains that feeds this hobby. Actually, it feeds a lot of hobbies and fills us with transcendent and often fleeting joy. As you know, I paint some miniatures from time to time, and from time to time we play games with those miniatures. But we also know that gaming miniatures are just one particular facet of the whole miniature hobby gestalt, right? There are all kinds of facets in this hobby. Disciplines and factions and genres and micro niches, and we have gunpla, which I'd like to try out sometime. We have display painting and busts and larger miniatures like 75mm and 6th scale, 8th scale, and there's dioramas, and inside of all of those facets are more facets, more niches. There's just a plethora of Russian nesting dolls worth of hobby niches to dive into. So, with a combination of seeing other YouTubers and Instagram artists posting some very cool display models online, and my own possibly growing frustration with my own physical shortcomings in painting 30mm scale gaming figures, I was cruising Etsy one day, just looking at the piles and piles of really cool 3D printed miniatures, and I came across this figure. This elven, I don't know if she's a druid or what, but she's a very cool sculpture, right? And I noticed in the drop downs to place an order for this 3D print that there was a scale option. Now, this is nothing new by any means, but I really just had never considered anything larger than gaming scale in these last few years since I've gotten back into the hobby. However, decades ago, back in the 90s, I guess the 90s are over there. I don't know where they are. I had been a fan of and collected what were back then called garage kits. Now, these were Japanese resin kits of like anime characters and manga characters, and there was a whole hobby subculture of these things, but we're skirting that rabbit hole for today. I'm going to go more in depth on that in a future video. Suffice it to say that I'm not necessarily a stranger to larger scale models, just that in my current hobbying I haven't gone in that direction, until I saw this scale option for this elven druid, which was sculpted by Great Grimoire. Link below, of course. I couldn't find any information on individual sculptor names, so Great Grimoire it is, right? Anyway, I saw that I could get this figure at 75mm scale, which is more than twice the typical gaming miniature scale. And I was like, yeah, I want to paint a 75mm display figure. That would be awesome. And this one is just too cool. I really like it. So I ordered it and waited to see what the quality of the print would be like. And here it is. It's pretty great, right? It's a little bit of a bummer that it's not in more pieces because some of these areas are going to be difficult to paint without being in sub-assemblies. Yes, I understand the irony of that statement coming from someone who admittedly dislikes sub-assemblies. But anyway, I think it's a super cool miniature. An excellent sculpt that has a lot of energy and movement to it, in my opinion. And when I got it, I was like super excited. This is going to be a fantastic project. And here's where that excitement tripped that collector module into overdrive, and I was immediately hit with this idea that, well, I wonder what other awesome large-scale 3D prints are out there. And just as a weird coincidence, at the same time as this was happening, I had either seen some Brahm art or something made me look up Brahm art. I mean, I've always liked Brahm stuff, and I was thinking that I could use a couple of his pieces as color reference for painting of a miniature. Not this elven druid necessarily, but because I was kind of looking at these things simultaneously, Brahm art and larger scale miniatures, when I saw this one on Etsy, I was like, bam, that's a Brahm piece waiting to happen. Now this model is from Mythreal Games, which again doesn't seem to list individual sculptor names anywhere, but they have a Patreon, which I linked below. I typically like more realistic armor on my female miniatures, but hey, once in a while, I guess some cheesecake is alright. As long as it's Brahm flavored, right? As long as it's Brahm flavored. Brahm flavored cheesecake. I just imagine going to the Cheesecake Factory and ordering a slice of Brahm cheesecake, and when you get it, there's a little weird, like, moldy spot in the corner, and when they set the plate down in front of you, spiders start pouring out of that moldy spot. Yeah, I think that's what Braum cheesecake would be like. Anyway, I've been collecting some reference images from his artwork that I find inspiring and that I really want to try out when painting this model, which is cool. But of course, when I was on that Etsy store page, I didn't see just this model, I saw more cool stuff, which is, of course, how the slippery slope works, right? And this model's cloak just sort of stunned me. And I was like, well, geez, it's only like $20 for one of these at 75mm scale. I mean, back when I was collecting those garage kits I mentioned, those were hundreds of dollars. So I ordered both of these kits. I mean, I call them kits, but they're really just single-piece miniatures, right? But here they are, and they are very, very nice prints. So I'm looking at all three of these, and suddenly I'm realizing that that first model I had picked out and was so excited by, the Elven Druid, it's lost some of its luster. That's not quite right. It hasn't lost any of its individual luster. It's just that looking at it now, while I'm still very excited to paint it up, my excitement is a little bit tempered by the fact that I know I have 2 additional 75mm display figures to paint up. Now, for the very short week when I had just this one on the shelf, there was a more concentrated feeling of excitement. Because now having 3 on the shelf, which in fact qualifies as a whole new pile of opportunity, sprouting up right before my eyes, the Pile of Opportunity 75mm edition, because I have more than the first one, these collector module acquisitions have diluted the excitement somewhat. Because now I got to be excited about 3 models instead of 1. Now, this sounds silly, I'm sure, because of course, who's not going to be excited when you have cool stuff, right? And I am excited. But I noticed this sort of dip in overall excitement about the 1 model, and I put a kibosh on my Etsy surfing right away. Because I could have just kept finding more and more cool 3D printed miniatures to buy. But I really wanted to stay excited about the ones that I've got. So yeah, I literally had to stop myself from continuing to shop, because I don't want to dilute the coolness I feel about these models now. And if they become just 3 cool models out of 45 cool models in a gigantic pile of opportunity, well, that's just sort of taking a big spike of coolness and flattening it out into a tepid pool of coolness. I don't know if that metaphor makes any sense. A spike of coolness that gets leveled out into a pool of coolness, which everything in the pool of coolness is still cool. It's just not quite as cool, but that's not necessarily true either, because when I look at each piece individually, I'm still like, oh, that one is very cool. I really like that. But maybe it's just the idea that, oh, well, I've got these all here, so I don't really know how to put a finger on what exactly is happening. This whole dilution of excitement, because it's not really, I mean, I guess it is diluting my excitement a little bit. It's just a little bit though, but it's enough that I noticed it. I think this phenomenon here I'm experiencing isn't necessarily the same as when you, say, buy a bunch of miniatures to build up, say, a warband or an army for a, skirmish game or something. But it might be similar to when you've collected multiple warbands or multiple armies, which of course most of us have done and continue to do, might be doing right now while you listen to this video. I see you out there clicking that add to cart button. Yeah, don't look at my add to cart button. Move along. So again, I'm definitely looking forward to painting up these 75mm scale models as display pieces. I mean, I don't know if the final paint jobs are going to be worthy of display, but I'm looking forward to trying anyway. Each one's going to need a base of some kind. I've got a few ideas, and I think I'm going to try to practice some airbrushing on these models as well. This scale of model is a great opportunity for that, I think. And even though the Elven Druid was my first purchase in this scale, I think I'm going to work on the Braum-inspired Gladiator Woman first, because I have a almost guaranteed to be erroneous feeling that that model will be an easier, quicker project to finish based on the paint scheme I have in mind, which even that is a little out there, right? I mean, I have a vague paint scheme in mind based on some of his art, some of the colors that he uses in his paintings, but we'll see how it goes. One cool thing about this whole 3D printing arena is how affordable these models are. I mean, if I completely trash the whole model somehow, I could easily get a second one and try again. But It's paint, and typically you can just paint over mistakes as many times as you need to. Anyway, I wonder if any of you out there have considered or worked on larger than gaming size miniatures, and what your thoughts are on that sort of thing. See ya.